Joe Rogan. CNN are saying that Joe Rogan is the reason that we have all this misinformation and even the reason that we don't trust mainstream media. But could another version of the truth be that while Joe Rogan is sort of doing a podcast, the mainstream media is slyly pushing us towards war? Welcome, you 4.8 million awakening wonders. Here we are together, resisting the duplicity and deception as we become more attuned to truth. This week, you can't avoid Joe Rogan. Now, we are talking about Joe Rogan, one, because you know what my position is on Joe Rogan, but I'm very interested when anything dominates the news cycle, particularly at a time that other important and interesting things are potentially occurring.
I want to show all kinds of opinions.
Which sounds great, but not all opinions are created equal.
No, listen here, Sonny Jim. You're not only making people not trust you, you're making them not trust me.
You think about major newsrooms like CNN that have health departments and desks and operations that work hard on verifying information on COVID-19.
They're out of order, aren't they? They can't say that after the way they carried on around that horse paste stuff.
Ivermectin is something more often used to deworm horses.
Yes, that's the deworming medicine.
When you have a horse deworming medication,
Horse dewormer.
To deworm livestock.
As a horse dewormer.
that's the upside down world we're in with figures like Joe Rogan.
That one example showed you that they were not operating in good faith. I care about the way that information is conveyed to us and whether or not that means there's an agenda at play. For example, I don't think Joe Rogan does have an agenda at play. I don't think Joe Rogan stops that podcast, which takes bloody hours, and goes, right, what's next? Like, these people do, though.
And then you have talk show stars like Joe Rogan who just wing it, who make it up as they go along. And because figures like Rogan are trusted by people that don't trust real newsrooms,
Well, like, why don't people trust me? They trust Rogan, but I'm perfectly trustworthy. Look how loose my tie knot is.
we have a problem that's much bigger than Spotify, much bigger than any single platform, Kate. But that's what is the heart of this.
I think what's at the heart of this is you're jealous of Joe Rogan. So obviously we're having a bit of a laugh, but the Joe Rogan story is everywhere, and we've done Joe Rogan videos. But what we want to talk to you about is the phenomena of reporting, the nature of misinformation, and how news agenda operates. For example, do you think it's possible that huge smoke screens and shitstorms are created
To distract you from what's actually going on. I wrote that down.
This is from Glenn Greenwald, who, if you remember, won a Pulitzer Prize for his writing on Edward Snowden, the fascist. The corporate media outlets consumed most voraciously by liberals are filled to the brim with war-loving neocons. Nice, right up to the brim. Yeah, we love it! Perhaps the most influential and beloved pundit in US liberal political life now is former Bush White House speechwriter David Frum, now at The Atlantic and CNN. We had Matt Taibbi on Under the Skin. He's coming up soon. I asked him, what's the most trusted news source? Do you know what he said? Don't trust any news source. Read a variety of things and make your own opinion. It was so beautiful to hear someone say that. He didn't go like this or like that. He goes, you're just going to have to read a load of stuff and form your own opinion. What I do, he said, when I write a story, is I call up 20 people who I trust from a variety of backgrounds, and I get all of their takes, and I think, who sounded most sincere? Did some people say the same stuff? Who's got particular interest in? And I thought, oh my God, yeah, of course. Well, actually, by the end of it, I felt embarrassed about asking the question. I thought, I almost went, that's what I do. Anyway, David Frum frequently appears on CNN and MSNBC to speak solemnly about matters of war, authoritarianism and patriotism, where he's treated like an elder statesman and the moral conscience of America. There are many common characteristics tying these neocons together and forming a cogent ideological strain. Two of the most toxic of these have been on full display over the last month. They are always, in every case, in favour of any opportunities for the US to involve itself in a new war. For me, I've changed the way I watch media, the way I understand reality, and a lot of that's because of the comments you leave us below, because of the relationship we've developed with one another through this channel that we share together. I've started to look at this kind of news and just go, oh, it's a blag. I can see it like plain as day. Can you? You wind up a neocon and they start inventing excuses for why the US must either bomb and invade other countries or enter a new proxy war to arm and fund other countries to do so for it. It is therefore unnecessary to point out that they are all not just in favour of US involvement in a potential war between Russia and Ukraine, but fanatical and giddy about it. So already we can advance the question at the beginning of this video. How much worse is what Joe Rogan's doing, having a variety of people on, chatting about a variety of subjects, people that have credentials in their area, you can't really query that, than what CNN are doing, bringing on warmongers to advocate for war. Let's go a little bit deeper. Paul Farey. Many of the retired military leaders employed by the networks as paid contributors have secondary affiliations that are rarely, if ever, mentioned, leaving viewers in the dark about whose interests they're promoting. Like, I'd like to know, wouldn't you, if someone's about to go, I think we should have a war, whether or not they would make money if there was a war. None of the leading networks, ABC, CBS, CNN, NBC and MSNBC, it's weird saying them together, makes a regular practice of announcing its military analysts' financial ties to the Pentagon. Why not? Be responsible.
Joe Rogan's irresponsible. He took horse maggot medicine the other day. Now tell me, sir, and don't tell me anything other than this, should there be a war? Yes, there should be a war. Interview's done. I'd like to see you do that, Joe Rogan.
None of them make a regular practice of announcing its military analysts' financial ties to the Pentagon, connections that could colour their on-air comments. Why doesn't the Joe Rogan garden apology apply here? What we're going to do on CNN is we're going to have someone who don't want to have a war because they're not going to make any money from it. And we're going to provide a broader context. A Wikipedia link will come up underneath to say, oh, by the way, this dude would benefit if there was a war. So the mainstream media is demanding standards of Joe Rogan on a subject that, in my opinion, may not be as important as World War III, and they're not willing to do it themselves. Hold yourself to those standards. That's the number one rule, isn't it? Former military officials played a key role in promoting the Bush administration's policies before and after the US invasion of Iraq in 2003, as documented in a Pulitzer Prize-winning series in the New York Times in 2008. The Pentagon orchestrated the commentary of 75 former officers who served as radio and TV analysts, turning them into message force multipliers for the administration's point of view. Many of the retired officers who appeared on TV worked for companies that counted on military contracts, creating a built-in conflict that news organisations didn't mention when introducing the analysts. So that's not news, is it? That's officially propaganda. Because news would sound like this. I'd love to see this on CNN. I'd love to see this on MSNBC or any of them alphabet things I just listed. Like, first of all, this dude makes money from it. In fact, he's not even on. Here's someone who don't make any money from it. We shouldn't have a war. Oh, it's terrible. What's the point? You know, someone over here, well, sometimes it's more complicated than that. Geopolitics, you don't know what's going on level of deep state. Do you make money from it? A bit. You know, like, they have no one that makes money from it as a rule. You have those standards for Joe Rogan, by all means, but first of all, have them for yourself. You can do that without broadcasting a single minute of stuff. You can just go, we're going to do this from now on. That's the end of it. Among others, James Spider Marks, a retired Army general.
We gotta get an honest and unbiased opinion. Who should we get? I say James Spider Marks.
Hello. A retired Army general served as an analyst for CNN between 2004 to 2007. At the same time, he sought military and intelligence contracts for a company, McNeil Technologies. CNN said at the time it didn't know the nature of Marks' work for the company. Marks, who has resumed his role as a CNN military analyst, is no longer affiliated with McNeil. Instead, he is a venture partner and advisor to a company that invests in veteran-led companies, including military contractors. CNN didn't respond to multiple requests for a comment. Oh, okay. Don't want honest and open communication now. Want it from other people, but yourself. Several other CNN analysts and frequent guests also have defence industry connections that haven't been mentioned on air. The larger issue is whether viewers or readers are adequately informed about where pundits are coming from on matters of life and death. Yeah, life and death, they're the main things, aren't they? You want to know, is this a life and death situation? Yes. Where's this pundit coming from? Someone that profits from death? Are you the news? Like it's in your title, in your name, rather than an experience with a little worry thing. Hey, Joe Rogan, 1 week talking about fighting in UFC, next one about psychedelics. This is the actual news, said Mandy Smithberger, director of the Centre of Defence Information at the Project on Government Oversight. When there is so much public concern about these wars, including among veterans, it becomes that much more important for people to know what the financial connections are, she said. News organisations should absolutely disclose this. It could change the conversation around war if people were aware of who was profiting from it. Let me know in the comments below if it would change your opinion on war if you knew that the people talking to you about war would profit from it. As the United States weighs more involvement in the growing conflict between Ukraine and Russia, some of the largest weapons companies in the world, Raytheon and Lockheed Martin, are openly telling their investors that tensions between their countries are good for business. Yeah, they would, wouldn't they? I mean, if you're making weapons, the number one thing that would mess up your business model is no need for weapons or wars. If they've got their people going on the TV saying, yeah, no, Russia, Ukraine, it's going to affect Americans. We don't do something about this, it'll affect Americans. Which Americans? I'm American. And General Dynamics, meanwhile, is boasting about the past returns the company has seen as a result of such disputes. They'll try out figures. Well, during the Iraq conflict, we actually made this much money, and we presume that... Oh my God, of course it makes sense, doesn't it? Of course the media, the government, defence contractors, of course they're all operating not in conspiracy, in collaboration, in cooperation. Of course they're going to grease the pathway to outcomes that are favourable to them. Of course ethics and morals are going to fall by the wayside when morality and spirituality and kindness and all that stuff is cast aside. Of course you're going to have Joe Rogan all over the news. Look at this guy, Joe Rogan, look over here. Okay, if there is a war, we would make a lot. Oh, Joe Rogan! We would make a lot of. Joe, look, he's done a fart! Oh! Among those openly discussing the boon to profits is Raytheon CEO Greg Hayes during a January 25th appearance on CNBC's Squawk on the Street. People are saying you can't trust Joe Rogan because of misinformation. Shut up, Joe Rogan. Now, what's going on the Squawk on the Street? Have a war? Good for business? Thank you. Intelligent news at last. He was asked, do we have anything that would make it so if you inserted 8,000 American soldiers into Ukraine, they can stop 103,000 Russian soldiers? In his reply, Hayes touted the role the company could play in arming US allies. Obviously, we have some defensive weapon systems that we could supply which could be helpful, like the Patriot missile system. It's like someone, it might as well be sort of like opening a suitcase, isn't it? Ding! We could help you with some of these guys. He went on to add, we've got the technologies to help in these engagements. This is war and death and people dying. American people, Ukrainian people, Russian people, innocent people, always mistakes, always errors. And what for? So someone can churn out some like missiles and then the media corroborates it, assists it, doesn't report it properly. Blame dear old Joe Rogan. Come on, man. This is ridiculous. The statements come as the US government escalates arms shipments to Ukraine, among them Javelin missiles that are a joint venture between Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. That's reality. That's what's happening in reality. I would say this. Refuse to participate. Refuse to get up in that phony complexity bullshit drama. Stay awake. Stay awake. Don't let them distract you and hypnotise and spellbind you. Don't let them call you conspiracy theorists or idiots or mugs or fools or extremists. Just stay awake. Stay focused. Stay connected. Watch this video if you like this one. Watch this video if you like that one. Stay free.